From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Dylan the Tennessee Pal Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Fellow conspiracy realist, let us be the first to officially welcome you to Monday, December 23rd, 2024. This is a pretty big week for adherents of Christianity, people who celebrate Christmas. This is also a big week for cyborg cockroach armies.
Finally.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've been
Christmas
waiting.
Eve with the cockroaches.
Oh, man, I've been waiting for their arrival as our new cockroach overlords.
Well, this is just what we can do pretty quickly. You can now take a single cockroach, one of the most resilient creatures on the planet, and you can give them a little cyborg backpack. You can do it in a little less than 2 minutes now. Way less than 2 minutes. And the reason we're talking about this is because we are not fans, but we're perhaps interested parties in the world of global surveillance. I got to tell you, I had someone gift me with a Roomba from our earlier conversations, and I'm not sure if I want it out there. What do you guys think?
You know, I've got a sort of sub Roomba, kind of bargain basement Roomba, and
A Soomba?
yeah, exactly.
A Timoomba?
I think, yeah, there you go. We named him something, anthropomorphized him, and put giant googly eyes on him, which will come up later. But he's not very smart, and I kind of just stopped using him because he kept getting stuck under stuff.
Right. So shout out to Zoe Ahmed writing for TechSpot. Cyborg cockroach armies can now be mass produced at a rate of 1 every 68 seconds. To the earlier point, maybe that's a weird thing to lead with, but it's because we have so much other stuff to get to. We're going to learn about some Uber scams. We're going to learn, like you said, Noel, about googly eyes, alphabet. We're going to have some talks about federal rules that maybe we can all agree with, some secret conspiratorial payments, so much more right after this break. And we have returned. We're returning with two purportedly mysterious deaths, which we have all separately read about, we imagine, before we went to air. The first one concerns the tragic story of a guy named Suchir Balaji. Have we all heard of Suchir's recent events?
Yes.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Just the broad strokes, yes.
Yeah, is a former researcher for a company called OpenAI. He has passed away. The authorities say he passed away due to suicide in November. So the public release of this guy's death and his cause of death didn't hit the airwaves until maybe 16, 17 days afterward.
Yeah, the stuff that is weird about this whole situation is the lawsuit, I think, right? We've talked before about people who are reported in the news as having taken their own life. And they are involved in major lawsuits, right, that are just imminent, about to happen, and then they've taken their own life, and then it's left up to us to decide, well, I guess you just read that in the paper and you go, okay, well, I guess that's what happened. But it feels like there's something more to the story simply because of those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to Lloyd Lee and Katie Balavec writing for Business Insider. They're talking about the case that we're referencing. So 8 days before Suchir Balaji is found dead. At this point, important to note, he is a former OpenAI researcher. He has left the company due to his own moral concerns. He's only 26 years old, and a little more than a week before he is found dead, his name appears in a lawsuit against OpenAI. It's a lawsuit filed not by another tech company, but by the New York Times in December of 2023. It accuses OpenAI, as well as Microsoft, of cribbing notes, cribbing journalism from New York Times without citation, without permission, without informed consent to train ChatGPT, which is, probably the world's most famous terrible writer at the moment. And they asked on November 18th to add Balaji as a custodian in the lawsuit, so not a defendant, right? He's not going to be culpable for damages. The idea instead is that he has, quote, unique and relevant documents that could support the New York Times case against these organizations, against OpenAI and against Microsoft. It's largely a copyright infringement case, but every time someone in this situation, this guy's a proper whistleblower, every time someone in this situation passes away, there should be more due diligence, right? We should look at every death with the same scrutiny the current power structure would give to, say, the CEO of a healthcare company.
Well,
we don't. We should. We being the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Conspiracy afoot or more information?
I would say the OpenAI, the company.
Yes, Sam Altman.
Yes, the company and the individuals who created it, and other people like, I don't know how to say this person's name, Ilya Sutskever, I think is how you say it. But these people are potentially facing billions of dollars in damages if this lawsuit goes through and it's successful. So it's not hard to see that there would be reason to want the lawsuit to fail, right? And how would you make that fail? We've all seen movies. When you remove important people from a case, it kind of goes away sometimes. That's not saying that's what's happening here, but it certainly makes you wonder.
Well, it's also like, with this assassination of the CEO, while opening up a conversation for reasons about the state of healthcare in the United States, like killing a single CEO doesn't change that, nor does killing a single whistleblower. I just wonder sometimes the bigger picture with stuff like that.
It's the burning question. Again, agreed. If you are in court, you're moving through legal proceedings, having a whistleblower die puts a target on you. You know what I mean? It raises suspicions by any measure, even if you are not directly involved.
Well, and I genuinely wonder if you remove the human being whistleblower from the situation, but that whistleblower had documents that could maybe prove certain things in a court of law.
Right.
I genuinely don't know if those documents are still able to be presented in court, or if it is something like, I don't know the right word, but like the custody and the chain of custody with those documents, right. Does it change? Or, I don't know how that functions.
Yeah, the provenance of the documents seems to be your question there.
Well, yeah, who had the documents and were they able to change them?
Right. And what were any possible intervening variables? We know that this situation in court will move through, hopefully in accordance with U.S. law. I hate that I have to knock on wood and say hopefully, but we also know that when someone has passed away, sometimes people can encounter immense stress, right? That makes them check out. We have to acknowledge the human moment. This kid, he's 26 years old. He had a family. That family has lost a loved one. Will this affect the case going forward? That's why it's strange news. That's what we're keeping an eye on, because OpenAI is at the center of, I would advance to you guys, what will be a proliferation of conspiracy theories in the very near future. Not the only mysterious death here. For everybody who's reached out to us individually or as a group, we do have an episode coming out on the assassination of former CEO Brian Thompson. The primary suspect in the U.S. court system is Luigi Mangione. We've mentioned this. We're moving things around to dive deep into that case, so please stay tuned there. Speaking of mysterious deaths, you guys probably clocked it too. A guy named General Igor Kirilov, from the chief of Russia's radioactive, chemical, and biological defense forces. He is very dead right now. He is very immediately dead. Him and his assistant. He was killed by a bomb, apparently on a scooter on a Moscow street quite recently. And get this, the nation of Ukraine has claimed responsibility.
Yeah, this is a particularly creepy one, at least in my mind, guys, because if you watch the footage, there's video has been released of this thing, and where that scooter is sitting in relation to where these two guys walk out of the door.
Right, the entryway, right.
It's close, but it's not that close. So
it's strategic, is it not?
Yeah.
It implies that one knew the path these people would take.
Yeah. I don't know. Creeps me out.
Yeah. An official with Ukraine's security service, which we would call the SBU, they said, Ukraine did it. We did it. We assassinated this guy. And again, it's one of our continual tropes that we see in these kind of reports. I'm going to quote the New York Times, thanks to Anton Troyanovsky and Constant Mehut. Here is the official quotation. The official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive intelligence operation confirmed the details of the assassination given by Russia. Again, an official speaking on the condition of anonymity. This is real hidden hand stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, always kind of gives you pause when you hear those kinds of things too, as far as like unnamed sources and speaking under the condition of anonymity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we even see it in pop culture. Someone close to the conversation confirmed this.
Was talking some
Right. A day before the general was assassinated, the nation of Ukraine had accused him of criminal activity and said that he was responsible for the massive deployment of banned chemical weaponry. However, I think I can Charlie Day a little bit of this. Let's look at the DHL sabotages. We'll have some fellow conspiracy realists talking about that in our listener mail segment later this week. I would also ask about the drones, some of which are clearly Poseidon program scanning for possible incursions of asymmetric dirty bomb or biochemical weaponry. I don't think these things are unrelated. I do have to ask you guys, does killing a bureaucrat matter? This is different from assassinating, say, a Iranian nuclear scientist, right? That's someone with the expertise and acumen to accelerate a nuclear program. This guy is a guy who gives orders, but does not necessarily invent this kind of weaponry himself.
I mean, it's a message, clearly, right? You can be touched. And in a scenario that is like, that's me accidentally quoting Ben, generally occurs.
Reach out and touch someone.
But it's like, it is one of those things where, for me, the message is more powerful than the actual strategic action as far as how it changes the battlefield.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Right. Is there a tit for tat, an escalation? Will a NATO general get touched as well? It's unclean stuff. Speaking of unclean, we can end this part of our show on one of two things. The choice is yours, gentlemen, fellow conspiracy realists. Do we want to hear about the next wave of super soldiers, or do we want to hear about super fungus? They're both super, technically.
We've already heard about sentient cockroach super soldiers, so maybe fungus?
Oh, man, I'm so glad you asked. I know you're going to love this one. There is a species of fungus that has been discovered in Chernobyl, in the space of, that nuclear disaster, which has still rendered the soil sour. A species of black fungus named, help me out here, guys, Cladosporium sphaerospermum.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Real name. It's found at the Chernobyl disaster site. It has apparently adapted to not only survive, but to feed off nuclear radiation. It's literally growing on the walls of reactor 4, and it takes the radiation, and the radiation just makes it stronger, like hitting, the Incredible Hulk with a gamma ray.
The Hulk turned green when the rays get gamma.
That's sick. But is this potentially a thing that can be used to, mitigate places that are infected with Yi radiation?
What a great question. That's what I'm hoping as well, dude, because we know that there have been multiple reports in the wake of Chernobyl arguing that the wildlife is adapting, right? That Earth will continue on its merry-go-round despite any disaster. We have to bust a myth. Yes, there are wild dogs descended from human pets that do survive in Chernobyl today. However, they are not evolving to resist radiation. They're certainly not evolving to feed from it. They're evolving to reproduce younger. At a younger and younger age. It's quite a tragic story.
But potentially this fungus would soak up radiation, right? Is that the idea?
Yes. Yeah, you're exactly right. The fungus is able to do so due to melanin. That's the pigment that gives people like Matt Frederick and yours truly an agglomeration of the non-consensual tattoos we call freckles.
Yeah, got a few of those.
Whoa. Well, that's the stuff that gives us cancer too, right? Because it's absorbing that radiation real good, but it kind of hangs out in our skin.
Oh God, yeah. Time to contact our dermatologist through a very cool thing called radiosynthesis. I was going somewhere with this Incredible Hulk reference. You guys, melanin absorbs gamma radiation in this fungus. So this fungus can soak up the stuff. To the earlier idea, to the question of whether this could be maybe, well, you can't really domesticate fungus too much. It's too smart. But could we perhaps deploy this as a biological scrubber in the wake of another nuclear disaster?
Well, they're talking about using it in space missions as a space radiation shield.
Yes.
Fungus? Come on, guys. If that's not some of these books I've been mentioning recently about using fungus in fun ways in outer space and not so fun ways.
Well, yeah, we had a story not terribly long ago about fungus that kind of took over, or mold that took over spaceships and that thrived in the vacuum of space and actually got into electronics and caused all kinds of, gremlin-like chaos.
Well, shenanigans, for sure. And I hold that we were correct when we said fungus is probably the best terrestrial life form for an astronaut. It's the best astronaut candidate, really.
I guess it makes me think of the character Venom. I know those movies are supposed to not be super great, but the character is kind of made up of this alien black mold type material that, or the black goo from the Alien franchise films. It just, I don't know, that to me is interesting use of fungus or mold or this type of material as stand-in for alien life.
100%. We've got to move on, you guys. Again, there's so much stuff happening. Look, you need to know that DARPA is currently in serious conversations to modify the red blood cells of human beings to adapt them to various conditions in war. And it gets so crazy that we might need to do a super soldier episode as an update, because the stuff I'm reading is nuts. And the scariest thing is it's not as crazy as it sounds when we did our first super soldier episode, those many years ago.
Yeah, I want to know how blood's getting changed to be super. I want some of that.
Yes, I think in the notes I have the actual PDF from DARPA. I can't link it directly, but I think I can send the file to you guys. In the meantime, we'll pause for a word from our sponsors, and we'll return with more strange news.
And we're back with more strange news. And guys, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and lead with a quick discussion of a very disturbing case that's been taking place in France. And so just trigger warning here for anyone listening. This describes, I'm not going to be graphic or anything, but some of the most horrific acts of sexual assault that I could possibly imagine. And I only bring this up because I found the verdict in this trial that I'm about to discuss is supposed to be announced tomorrow. That's December the 19th, Thursday, December the 19th. But it's not something that we've discussed. And honestly, I only bring it up today, in advance of the verdict coming down, because NPR had a really thoughtful piece about it, and essentially talking about how there are things about this case that are potentially going to change the narrative around sexual assault. So we'll just get right to it. The case involves a woman named Gisèle Pelicot, who for over a decade was drugged and sexually assaulted by her husband and many, many other men who her husband organized through various chat rooms involving the trading and proliferation of, illegal sexual material, often sexual assault related material. He essentially was using his wife in this way and making videos of it. And due to another case or another infraction that this man, Dominique Pelicot, was caught in the act of essentially some upskirt photographs that he was taking at a local supermarket where they lived in a small village in France. This led police to confiscate his phone and laptop, and in doing so, they found what's being described as more than 20,000 videos of sexual assault on his wife. And when his wife was essentially shown a still frame of one of these, she didn't even know what she was looking at first. And apparently he would even dress her up in lingerie that she would not have normally worn. He would, at first it was just him doing the assault, and he would do sexual acts that she was not comfortable with in the course of their marriage. And then it escalated to, having all of these outside parties coming in and organizing this, coordinating this, kind of fine-tuning the cocktail of drugs that he was giving her, and then creating this material that was then found by police. Gisèle, understandably, was absolutely shattered, her entire world. She'd been married to this man for, I think, 38 years. I can only imagine the realization in that moment of that level of betrayal and just how that could just literally shatter one's psyche. But I think the reason that I wanted to bring it up, because this NPR piece just points out very astutely that, she actively decided to not lean on anonymity and to become a public face for this kind of sexual assault. I mean, this is obviously just unspeakably horrific and just the most extreme example that I've ever seen of something like this. But in not being anonymous and becoming this kind of face of this type of crime, I think she has reached a lot of women who have experienced similar things, because, rape and sexual assault is most often perpetrated by partners, by people who, are known to an individual who is being assaulted. And that is sadly something that maybe gets overlooked a lot. And then this is something that Gisèle is very, actively sort of shining the light on, I guess, let's just say. She has decided to change her name to her maiden name and moved to an undisclosed location to restart her life. But during the course of the trial, she was identified by her married name, with this man, this man who allegedly and almost certainly, did these horrible acts to her. And they have 2 grown children who had to find out about this. And, the family has basically purged all remnants of this man from their lives in terms of photographs, in terms of keepsakes, anything like that. One of his own children described him as the worst sexual predator in the history of France. And another thing that the NPR piece, and I should actually mention what it is, by Eleanor Beardsley, that a mass rape trial in France has changed the conversation about sexual assault. This came out on December 17th, which was yesterday as we record this. Just points out that France, this isn't the only place. This certainly isn't unique to France, but in visiting there, I've kind of witnessed it firsthand. I've only been once in my adult life. I've spent some time in Paris, and there is a culture of really toxic masculinity that's very open and unapologetic. And I literally was at a bar with people, and I saw a man yank a woman out of the toilet, by her arm, whether she was his partner or whatever, or a stranger or whatever. It was irrelevant, but it was just the level of open misogyny and just, physical assault, essentially, that was just kind of laughed off by a lot of the people that were there. And I was really taken aback by that. And, in talking about that to other people that I know, they kind of have pointed out that, yeah, this is a real problem in France. So there are some details in this case that are beyond heartbreaking, and I think it may well be something that when more information comes out after the dust is settled in the case a little bit, may well be worth exploring in a difficult but I think important full episode, potentially. So I know that's a massive bummer, guys. I don't know if there's anything. Ben, I know you've been following this case as well. Matt, not sure how much you're familiar with this or have seen it. It was honestly something that had kind of sadly slipped under my radar, and I had not seen it reported a ton in Western media. And, we do these strange news episodes every week, and I'm constantly looking for stories, and it really didn't seem like it was getting a whole lot of attention until now that the verdict is coming down. And surely this has been an ongoing case for a long time. But yeah, I just want to throw it to you guys if there's anything about this piece or about this case that you'd like to comment on.
Well, Noel, I appreciate you bringing this to our fellow conspiracy realists, especially if anyone in the audience tonight is unaware of the sheer depravity and degradation that occurred here. Perhaps the most important thing to take away from this story is that Gisèle Pelicot is heroic, because it in a conspiracy of silence, and I've spent some time in France as well. In a conspiracy of silence, the most powerful tool someone has is transparency. So being transparent about this will hopefully empower other survivors, whom I will not call victims. And it's heavy. It's beyond words. Both the unclean nature of these crimes, wherein I believe, as you said, 50 different individuals were charged. I think equally heavy and powerful and beyond words is the sheer heroism of this person who is raising a clarion call to other people who may have been in similar situations.
Yes, 100%. Completely agree. Matt, anything that occurs to you about this before I move on to something maybe a little lighter?
Just quickly, there's a striking thing at the end of a BBC News article written by Laura Ghazi.
Excellent piece as well.
Yeah. You can look it up. It's titled, "New Name, No Photos, Gisèle Pelicot Removes All Trace of Her Husband." And if you go all the way to the bottom of the article, it's part of the trial there. They had one of the family members go up on the stand who was not, immediately in the family, but was pretty closely related. Somebody who helped Gisèle go to, doctor's visits. And one of the attorneys, the defense attorney, says basically, well, how could you not have known that this was happening? And this person says, and this is just a crazy powerful quote, "You're forgetting one thing. You cannot imagine the unimaginable."
Yeah.
which is what this entire thing feels like to me.
I mean, I recently, this is a different type of story, but it's in this fiction. But I recently, I think I mentioned on the show, a film that came out last year and really just started getting attention this year called Red Rooms. And it's a French-Canadian film about a trial involving a man who allegedly committed horrific murders on camera in what are kind of these fabled red rooms of sort of like dark web lore, the idea of these like snuff films, for the internet. And I can't, in my mind, this is, a sexual assault version of that. There are websites that trade in this kind of material. There's a chat room that's referenced in that BBC article called Without Her Knowledge. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that does exist. This is currency, on the internet, in these dark, depraved kind of corners of the internet and the dark web and all of that. And so I just couldn't help but think of that film, because it is an excellent, excellent film, by the way. And it's a different type of crime, but it does ring similarly in my ears as far as like the level of meticulousness of cataloging these videos and like potentially selling them or streaming them or what have you. It's just the mind kind of recoils in horror at this sort of stuff. And I think another point that the BBC and the public radio piece make that I think is really important here is that the men that are on trial here, 71 men, in fact, many of whom are named and on trial. I think it's 50 that are actually on trial. I'm sorry if I'm getting some details not quite right, but it's in that neighborhood. I don't think every single one of them was found. But they're all on trial for up to 20 years imprisonment. But the point is that these are not people you would look at and say, these are monsters. These are boogeymen. These are pure evil. These are working class French men. And many of them are part of this misogynist kind of culture. And there's even, a historical, thing in French culture that I think was only sort of overturned, legally speaking, the idea of the man being established as the head of the household. And a lot of these people who were, pulled in and put on trial for these crimes, their argument was that they didn't rape her because her husband gave them permission. I mean, come on. It was wild that someone would think that that's an argument.
Yeah, it's an argument, but it is a morally fraudulent and insidious attempt at an argument. It reminds me, Noel, and I think many of our fellow conspiracy realists, of the related cases involving widespread sexual abuse in the Nth Room affair in South Korea, a criminal case involving cybersex trafficking, sexually exploitative videos, often with the victims drugged, as we're describing in this French case, across multiple demographics. And the reason this calls to mind a relationship between these same abominable things is how you have, like, how you've described or chosen to describe the criminals, the monsters doing this stuff. It's important to know, it's important to know that the monsters may move amid you. They don't always have a big sign that says sexual assaulter on them. That's why Gavin de Becker's The Gift of Fear is a must-read book, and it's a really important point. I think beyond just France, it's a human experiential point.
Yeah, the whole banality of evil kind of thing. And I know this is not like some sort of new point, and then we all know that monsters move among us, and that serial killers are often described as being, oh, he was so nice, he's quiet, he kept to himself. So this isn't some sort of like hot take, but I do think that the interesting angle on this sort of cultural thing that is pretty strong in France and other places, to your point, Ben. But I think the conversation around this particular part of the world is particularly interesting and heartbreaking. So I don't know, guys. I feel kind of dumb following this up with a story about a googly-eyed bandit in Oregon.
It would make us feel better, maybe.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll give. Yeah, please, Matt, please.
Before you do that, I'm going to do a shameless plug because we're talking about monsters.
Right.
Coming in January, there's a new season of Monster, following Atlanta Monster, the Zodiac Killer, DC Sniper, La Monstra, Freeway Phantom, all those. So look for that. And it's about a very particular fellow that walked among us, and nobody expected.
Can we say the name for the people, Matt?
No, we cannot.
All right.
Not yet? All right.
You keep your secrets, Matt Frederick. You keep your secrets. No, it's true. And always high quality reporting in those series. So yeah, I'll just really briefly, button that one up. And I think there is more to discuss moving forward. But end with just a diametrically opposing fun story out of Oregon. Public works of art all throughout the city of Bend, Oregon have been being defaced by a googly eye bandit. So I'm describing him, who is taking googly eyes of varying sizes and putting them on these public works of art. There's some pretty fun ones. One called Big Ears, that's like a deer. It really looks cute with those big googly eyes. There's this like orb, this kind of sphere. Let's see, a public sculpture that is this sort of like porous sphere that's sitting on top of a rock. It's got these googly eyes on it. It reminds me of the rocks from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, bit of mischief, seems relatively harmless. But the powers that be in Bend, Oregon are saying that this not only costs money, from the city, from the taxpayers to remove, but it has the potential to actually damage some of these works of art. Outdoor art, whether they be made of bronze or other types of materials, are often coated with kinds of lacquer that protect them from the elements. And when you use adhesives on that, it can pull the lacquer off, and that can cause areas that could be prone to rust and potentially, damaging the sculpture on a larger scale. And there's a couple of different perspectives because, there's a Facebook post that gets referenced in this piece from the AP. Mysterious googly eyes go viral after appearing on public art in Oregon by Claire Rush. And she cites this Facebook user saying, "My daughter and I went past the flaming chicken today and shared the biggest laugh." This comes from a user with the name Phoenix Rising. "We love the googly eyes. The town is getting to be so stuffy. Let's have fun." This actually also made it to a segment on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where he kind of poked fun at this and maybe poked fun a little bit at the city officials who are sort of poo-pooing the whole thing. So let's just end with a quote or a statement from some of these city officials, including Renee Mitchell, Bend's communications director. And she had this to say: "We really encourage our community to engage with the art and have fun. We just need to make sure that we can protect it and that it doesn't get damaged. There was no intent to be heavy-handed, and we certainly understand maybe how that was taken. We own this large collection of public art and really want to bring awareness to the community that applying adhesives does harm the art. So as stewards of the collection, we want to share that on social media." And so far, the city spent about $1,500 removing these googly eyes from 7 of the 8 public sculptures that they were placed on.
Well, that's a shame. This is an exciting, new, silly Banksy artist that is emerging. Have we thought that maybe this is the work of the production team at Last Week Tonight for some episode that's going to come out later?
You said you were going to be cool.
Yeah, it's a good theory, Matt. It's a good theory. But let's close up this segment of strange news from me. Hear a word from our sponsors, and then come back with one final bit of strange news for you.
Breaking news, guys. This just came in. I didn't even put it into the doc. Remember Disease X that we briefly mentioned
from the DRC? And again, I object to the post-colonial shadow of calling something Disease X. But I get it. There was a mystery. You brought this story.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that, the post-colonial disease X. I think it was just saying it's unknown what disease it is.
I feel like they call it Disease X more often on the African continent, especially when Western authorities are reporting it. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, the thing that they are calling Disease X, it was an unknown thing that had affected hundreds of mostly children. When we talked about it, it was identified in at least several of, I think 24 roughly, of the children to be malaria. Well, now, according to Congo's health ministry, who declared in a statement yesterday as we're recording this, that, quote, the mystery has finally been solved. It's a case of severe malaria in the form of a respiratory illness, which is still sounds really scary to me. You don't want that. You never want to get that. And there were 592 cases when the alert was first raised. And that was back in October, like late October. So this is just a messed up thing that's happening, but at least the disease has been somewhat identified, so it can now be treated, at least better than it has been for the past several months. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Oh, guys, there's more stuff's coming in. This is a story about someone we mentioned recently, Hana Kobayashi. This is a young woman who went missing after she flew from Maui to Los Angeles. Her family lost contact with her. She was supposed to fly to New York City in a connecting flight. She didn't. Then we saw that there was footage of her walking into Mexico via the border there at San Diego. We heard a terrible and tragic story about her father flying to Los Angeles, searching for her, who was found. It appeared to be that he had taken his own life. Horrible stuff. Well, as of right now, guys, she is back. She is back in the United States as of December 15th. She has returned. That is according to a letter that she wrote and gave to her aunt, who then distributed it out to media. And everything appears to be okay, other than, of course, the tragedy that occurred with her father. But the family is now recovering and figuring everything out. It's one of these stories, guys, that feels like there's way more to it. Like there's a puzzle that needs to get solved still. Like what happened? Why did she go no contact? You know,
a timeline at the very least.
Yeah, it feels that way. But I wonder if, like personally for me, if that's how my brain has been primed for these kinds of things. And what happens when a giant media spotlight gets shown on any individual life, right?
You find too many things is what happens.
But you're cherry picking circumstances, right?
Sure. For a narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like shining on anybody's life, there's stuff going on that person probably would rather not everybody know about. So then it becomes this mystery of, oh, well, what's actually happening? We have to find out. And then it becomes more and more and more and more. And it snowballs into what we saw here with Hana Kobayashi, where the media appeared to be obsessed with it. And I know that I was thinking about it. There were YouTube and TikTok videos coming out all over the place about this, speculating on every possibility of what could be happening. We talked about some of the speculation, even when we just mentioned it. And then she comes back, and here's the quote from Hana herself. I was unaware of everything that was happening in the media while I was away, and I'm still processing it all. My focus is now on my healing, my peace, and my creativity. I am deeply grateful to my family and everyone who's shown me kindness and compassion during this time. And then basically, but also leave us alone, please. And that's not a direct quote, but that's like
it's the implication.
Well, yeah. And I can imagine that feeling, but I can also imagine the family's feeling of we can't get in contact with this person that we love and we're terrified. I can imagine the police officers who are out there searching and, hunting down leads to figure out what the heck happened. It's something that becomes a media storm that I think is probably disruptive and destructive.
And
ultimately.
distractive.
Oh, very much.
And there's one interesting wrinkle I'd like to share here, which is very small. I don't think it matters, but Kobayashi is also very well known in the West for two things. First, the Kobayashi Maru, the famous unwinnable scenario in Star Trek, and then second, Kobayashi as a made-up name in Usual Suspects. We're not going to spoil it more, but it's another investigative missing persons case, just leaning on fiction a little bit to argue the name Kobayashi pops in certain areas of the brain in the Western world, right? If the person's name had been different, would as much attention have been paid? Had their socioeconomic or their demographic makeup been different? Would as much attention have been paid? It's a troubling question.
It is. It appears that it was the family's tenacity that got the media attention rolling. They didn't stop raising their hand and saying, hey, We need help. Hey, we need help. Something is wrong. We don't know what's happening. We need help.
Reaching out to the law, reaching out to media, perhaps even more importantly, to push the law to do more, arguably, than they might in other similar instances.
Yeah. But it is weird because this, oh God, I don't even want to say it out loud. I had the thought that this is a viable way to make yourself extremely famous and then let it calm down. And especially if you're an aspiring artist or someone who is going to use their talents to make money in the future, now everybody knows your name. And if you are putting, let's say you've put together some art and you want to do an art show, you put your name to, somebody who has a gallery and they're like, oh, I know who that is. Yeah, we're doing an art show.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Other people come in and go, oh, I can get an H Kobayashi. And I don't look, and I'm not saying that's what she did. I'm just saying this is a troubling way, a potential way to get that kind of attention.
Yeah. Guys, my pal Matt here is not ascribing motive. We are gaming through what, to your point, Matt, is a quite viable strategy, one that historically has occurred in the past. Just saying. And this is, in no way at any point are we alleging that conspiracy. I feel like what you're saying is more an observation.
I am not alleging that conspiracy. Matt Frederick is not saying that. Matt Frederick is exploring ideas. But hey, we just wanted to put it out there because it did seem like a possibility. Not in this case, but in maybe the future. Because I couldn't find any specific instances of that occurring in the past where like somebody disappeared on purpose for fame and eventual fortune or something like that. But moving on, guys, there is an exciting new federal regulation that we just have to talk about. Federal regulations. There's really, I don't know if there's a positive thing. They have the potential to be very helpful, especially for human beings that do things like consume products or use services like, I don't know, healthcare or go to concerts or get a hotel room. So in this case, we're talking about us, the folks who buy things and do things. Well, on Tuesday, December 16th, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has finalized a rule that will ban, quote, junk fees for live events, hotels, and vacation rentals. I believe we've mentioned this before, that there was talk of this occurring. It is now finalized. You can go to ABC News and read the writing of Elizabeth Schulz. The title of the article is New Federal Rule Bans Junk Fees on Hotels' Live Event Tickets. And the new regulation that comes forward, or we'll see the effects of it in April, basically makes companies put the full price up front. So you won't get a resort fee hidden in your whatever it is. Not an Airbnb, it would be probably a hotel in a city somewhere. Or you won't get at the end of your live event ticket purchasing a little thing that says, here's an extra $5 that has to go on there for stuff.
Convenience.
Yeah.
Service. Stuff like that.
But it doesn't mean you're going to be saving any money. Those prices now will just be worked into the official sticker price that you see when you click on the first link, basically, to buy that ticket. Who knows if it's actually going to help anybody out? But it's nice. It's a nice form of bringing a little more transparency to some of those transactions that we do online.
That's super cool, too, because you know what this could be, Matt? This could signal a precedent for one of the most confusing things about physical stores here in these United States. One of the things that constantly bedevils my otherwise incredibly intelligent contacts when they go to the U.S. is they always ask me, why is the price on the shelf not the price that I pay? And I have to say, well, yeah, they bring up some state taxes, then, depending, your mileage may vary geographically. There might be some local taxes. There might be some tourist stuff, and then the question, which is a very good question, is why don't you just tell me how much it is?
Yeah.
Like,
why not?
Why? You're not paying any more for the sticker with the price tag on it. You know what I mean? Just do the right price at the top.
Dude, like so many things in this world that we encounter, it's a form of weaponized psychology. Because when you see it and it looks nice and affordable, you go, oh, this is good.
$12.99? That's not $15.
Exactly. Yay. But it, I don't, honestly, guys, I don't know how helpful this new thing's going to be, but I did want to give a very special, and I'm doing this on purpose, shout out to current FTC chair Lena Khan, who throughout her tenure there has really been pushing for, quote, a new era of antitrust regulation, challenging the business models of major corporations in industries ranging from big tech to pharmaceuticals.
Shout out Khan. Agreed.
Dude, Khan! We dig,
nice.
We dig all of that stuff, but Khan is going to get replaced as soon as the new administration comes in.
So if you're hearing us, Khan, go frickin' nuts right now. All the stuff, push it through. Don't save anything for the swim back. Hear me before they cut off the mic.
Oh man, there's a piece at the end of this ABC News article that it's a quote from Khan, and people have been asking her, well, you're basically a lame duck FTC chair now because you're about to be out the door. Like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm using every second I got in here. I was just like, yeah. It's just awesome. Guys, I'm right at the end here. I'm gonna say one more thing, one more note that I think is worth our time. This is on you, though, ye who hear this. Check this out on your own time if you can. BBC published an article by Andy Verity. Title is Jaguar Land Rover Electric Car Whistleblower Sacked. This is a huge story that we all need to be aware of. It is very important. It has to do with, it's similar to the Boeing story, has to do with a whistleblower coming forward within the companies that manufacture electric vehicles. It's for several companies, but they mention Jaguar Land Rover, and I always say Jaguar because of those commercials back in the day. Jaguar.
So fancy. I always wanted one just for the hood ornament,
Yes. But there are several other companies involved here, including a Vietnamese car maker named VinFast, VinFast, and it's specifically about electric vehicles that they are manufacturing that this whistleblower is saying have faulty parts, faulty manufactured parts on them. Very important parts, specifically the shocks on these vehicles and the systems attached to those shocks, which, as this whistleblower is saying, and posted some stuff on Reddit, and that's why he got fired, about how they will fall apart mid-driving, like going very fast, especially going fast and you hit a small pothole or something. They have the potential to break apart completely to where the tires get so misaligned that the person driving that vehicle loses complete control. One family of 4 has been killed due to this faulty manufacturing, and there are several dozens of other crashes reported due to this stuff. But of course, the companies want to keep it quiet, and this guy is trying very hard not to keep it quiet. So do look this up, check it out, and I guess tell us what you think. That's it.
And while you're telling us what you think, you're probably wondering, how do I reach out and not like Kiev touch these guys, but just in general, how do I contact stuff they don't want you to know? We've got some great news for you. You can find us on email, a telephonic device. You can even hit us up on various versions of the internet. Your favorite platforms, your favorite social medias should you sip.
That's right. You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy. On X, FKA, Twitter, and on YouTube, we have video content galore for your enjoyment. On Instagram and TikTok, on TikTok, though, guys, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We have a phone number. It is 1-833-STDWYTK. Put it in your contacts if you choose to call it. If you do choose to call it, you'll hear a familiar sound, a familiar voice, and then you'll get 3 minutes. Within that 3 minutes, give yourself a cool nickname, and let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. Other than that, no rules. If you've got more to say, maybe links, maybe photos, anything like that, can't really do it that way, but you can do it if you send us a good old-fashioned email. We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Big shout out to Tom, by the way, who recently reached out regarding his story about a dragon, which I would argue prefigures the recent hubbub surrounding drones across these United States. Can't wait to hear your limericks. If you are anyone but Humorous Harry, please send us some jokes as well. Most importantly, give us some leads on new episodes. We're just a step away from the light. Join us out here in the dark. Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.